Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here today to give you a first look at individually at the Sony FE 24 to 70 millimeter f2.8, and this is the G Master lens. Of course, the G Master series represents Sony's top-of-the-line lenses that are designed with very high resolution in mind and have a superior price and are to deliver superior performance. One of the chief maybe accusations against Sony or indictments against them has been the fact that while Sony bodies compared to kind of their main counterparts are somewhat reasonably priced, it's been noted that a lot of kind of the key lenses, like a 24 to 70 millimeter f2.8 zoom, for example, tend to be at the upper tier of pricing compared to a Canon or Nikon counterpart. And certainly such is the case with the FE 24 to 70 millimeter G Master lens, which retails at $2,200 in the US market, which makes it definitely a very expensive option. And of course, I have been doing a bit of comparison with the Tamron 28 to 75 millimeter f2.8, not because they're identical lenses. They do have slightly different focal lengths, obviously, and not that they're even at the necessarily same grade of build, but mostly because this Tamron represents the kind of lens that Sony has had very few of. That is, third-party or reasonably priced alternatives to lenses like the G Master lens. But I'm not here really today to debate the merit versus a lens like the Tamron, but rather to give you a breakdown, a look at the G Master, and to review it, as its own entity, as a lens like that. And so obviously this is a lens that has received Sony's top-of-the-line build and feature set because it is, it is a G Master lens. And so it starts with one of the very nicest padded cases that I have seen, in that it's very easy to use, and frankly this blows out of the water the leatherette sock that is included with the Canon L series alternative 24 to 70 millimeter f2.8 L Mark II. And so kudos to Sony for delivering a highly functional, very nice case with straps for carrying. I don't know how much you actually use a case like this, but I'm always happy to see something like this in the bag. Beyond that, this is a fully weather-sealed lens and has high grades of internal sealings, and so that you can use it in a lot of more challenging weather conditions and get excellent results there. Looking at it in terms of the physical design, one thing to note is that like some of Canon's recent lenses, it does have a lock there for the actual lens hood to lock it into place. And Tamron has also employed this with their 24 to 70 f2.8 G2 lens. Like the Tamron, it's a nicer release here in that it's wider, it's easier to click than what the Canon version is. At the same time, I'm still not entirely sold on the necessity of a locking mechanism, in that I feel like lenses that have a good, that are tightly engineered and have a nice detent there where it clicks firmly into place, I don't personally have an issue with dislodging them. However, this does seem to be a feature, and perhaps for some people it's a necessary feature. So anyway, it does include that. The lens hood itself is made of plastic. However, it does have a like a felt-like kind of flocking interior to help to block stray light from bouncing around. As is fairly common for these lenses now, it has an 82 millimeter front filter thread, and so very nice there. Now, in terms of the actual zooming mechanism, it is not an internally zooming lens. However, it is very, very nicely damped. There's no hint of wobble or anything in the barrel. This feels like, premium action there. It does have a lock on it. However, it's debatable to me whether or not this lens you'll ever need that actual lock. For example, even with the body attached. you know, even with the weight of the body pushing down, I'm seeing very, very little zoom creep. However, what does happen sometimes is if you're carrying it on a strap or something to where you're having friction with your leg rubbing against it, it can cause something to zoom. And so I always prefer to have a lock than to not have it, but the tolerance here is very, very tight on that. And so as you can probably tell by looking here, the zoom ring is the one closest to the camera body, and the focus ring is the one that is further away from the camera body itself. Now, like other mirrorless lenses, this is a focus by wire system. And so that means that this lens, there's no mechanical coupling, so you can keep spinning and spinning and spinning all day. It only does something when the camera is powered on and either is in manual focus mode, which you do have a dedicated switch on the barrel, which is something that, you know, some of the less expensive lenses like the Tamron don't have. And so you do have a switch right there if you prefer physical controls to go between autofocus and manual focus. And so you can utilize it then, but of course still the camera needs to be powered on because that signal will be taken from this focus ring, routed through the camera body and through the focus motor, and that actually produces the focus changes. At the same time, however, Sony has done a pretty good job and with the focus ring here, in that there is some, you know, reasonable damping to it. One thing I do really like is with Sony bodies is that when with certain lenses like this one, when it detects input on the manual focus ring, it will automatically magnify the center of the image, and so you can quickly make your focus, you know, fine tuning and then go back to taking your photo. It's a system that I find works quite well. Your second way of accessing manual focus is if you have the camera in DMF mode. DMF mode allows you to directly manual focus. It's what you might call a manual focus override on a DSLR type lens. Now, the other nice thing that some Sony bodies, or I shouldn't say some Sony lenses have, the more premium ones, is a focus hold button. And so this button, however, can be mapped to different things. And so, you know, one that I actually like to program these for is actually to program IAF there. And so it's a very convenient way if you're shooting portraits, for example, to very quickly switch into, just by holding that, to enable IAF, and so to get great results there. And so in terms of the design here, you know, nothing particularly mind-blowing in terms of the feature set, but you have a very nicely built lens that does have, you know, nice features, you know, and some of the standouts being the focus hold button and actually having a physical control on the camera body. And so weather sealing is quality on that. All of those things are good. Now, of course, there's some negatives here as well, most notably being, as I've already noted, the price. It's also, as you can see, it is a physically large lens. It is 3.45 inches in diameter, and it is 5.35 inches long. That makes it on the longer end of 24 to 70 millimeter f2.8 zooms. So of course that's a bit of a problem if you're thinking about mirrorless as a means of being smaller and lighter. This is not a smaller and lighter lens. And in fact, it's one of the physically largest lenses in the class, and that's across, you know, Canon and Nikon alternatives, Sigma, Tamron, etc. And so it's not a small lens. That's 87.6 millimeters in diameter, or 136 millimeters in length, and that of course is before zooming. With a lens that's fairly long like that, what it means is that, for example, I have got and I'm reviewing right now the Peak Design sling bag. And so if you have a bag like that, and of course it's not just that bag, but it's a number of bags to where depth becomes an issue. Disregard my wrist there. I managed to inadvertently stab myself yesterday. And so, but anyway, in the bag like this, it's just too long, even with the lens hood reversed, and so it doesn't physically fit. Whereas if I do the same thing with the Tamron lens, it does fit like that. And so that just may be an issue for you, that storage becomes more of an issue with a physically large lens like that. It's also not a light lens. It's nearly 2 pounds, 1.95 pounds, or 886 grams. And so it's a large, heavy lens. And so if you want mirrorless to be small and light, obviously this lens is not going to cut it for you. Now, it does have an excellent autofocus system in it. It has a silent wave motor, and it is definitely very, very silent. I mean, the only thing that I hear is focus confirmation. And so if you switch into a mode where, for example, I've got mapped here to where I can turn it into the silent focus mode. Well, if you've got that on, you're not going to hear anything in operation. And so it's silent when autofocusing, it's silent during video AF. And it's also extremely fast. No issues with focus speed. I mean, focus speed is basically instantaneous, and so I really like that aspect of it. I mean, it does as well as any 24 to 70 millimeter lens that I have ever used. In fact, I would call it better in the fact that not only is it extremely fast, it's extremely quiet. I also have noted in terms of the focus in that at some, close to medium distance shots, say if I'm shooting, as I often do, a shot like this where I'm trying to focus on a branch with a background beyond it, or a flower or something like that, I found that the G Master lens, kind of instantly determined that that was what I wanted to focus on. It focused perfectly. When I was using the Tamron, sometimes I had to force the Tamron through some manual focus to come back to actually what I wanted to focus on. So I found that the focus system is a little bit more intuitive than that on the Tamron. Things like IAF work exceptionally well with this. Great focus system, so everything there is very good. The lens itself is 18 elements in 13 groups, and it can focus down to 1.25 feet or 38 centimeters and produces a very useful 0.24 times magnification. And so there's lots of applications for something like that. It has 9 rounded aperture blades. There's nothing negative to report about it other than the fact that it is large and it is expensive. I'll be following this up. Of course, I have an ongoing series where I'm comparing image quality to the Tamron. I'll also come back after that series with a final verdict on the lens itself. In the meantime, however, as always, you can take a look in the description down below and you can find links to my image gallery that I'm adding lots of images to throughout the process of my review. You can also find linkage there if you would like to purchase one for yourself. And of course, if you haven't already, you can follow me on social media through links down below, become a patron, and click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thanks for watching today. Have a great day.